This video is dedicated to Ravenous Raven Design. Thank you so much for your support on Patreon. More on them at the end of the video. To help you understand which color you most identify with, I'm going to explain each color's values, its gameplay, their strengths and weaknesses, and the creatures most found in each color. But before I start, the statements I make in this video are very generalized. We as Magic players are the actually people amongst our friends, so don't be that guy in the comments saying, oh well actually this color does blah 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 blah. I know, generalizations, folks. Okay, let's jump in. White wants peace. White, when presented with a decision, asks what the right course of action is. And right could mean anything within a group's moral compass. This includes mass wars and destruction to bring balance, if you will. White wants to create a world with no unnecessary suffering. Life should be as good as it can be for each individual. The key to making this happen, though, is teaching individuals the importance of taking actions which benefit the group as a whole, even if those actions might not benefit them personally. White wants as many of those individuals as possible to understand its motives and share them, but it knows that in order to accomplish a larger goal, some individuals will have to be led down that path rather than venture off on their own. White's resource comes from planes, where you'll find light and healing. White is actually typically aggressive. It can outnumber opponents fast, and it has a lot of ways to buff up small creatures in order to overwhelm. It protects its own with protection spells, but it isn't afraid to lose a few creatures here and there. It has the most ways to destroy your opponent's board, with lots of strict removal, as well as passive removal. Global kill spells are also common in White. It's also known as the life gain color, constantly being able to stay ahead of the curve. Taxation is a part of White as well. Keep opponents at bay while you amass an army. White is typically known for using these creature types: Angel, Knight, Soldier, Rebel, Cleric, Monk, Kitsune, Core, Wizard, Human, Samurai. These creatures may also have access to keywords such as Vigilance, Flying, First Strike, or Exalted. White is good at casting and creating creatures very fast. It can also get rid of mass numbers of creatures and has access to the most mass removal. It's the best color for life gain as mentioned before, and is also very good at keeping opponents from attacking you or casting spells efficiently. White is not good at card draw, however, or finding extra lands from your deck. It does have ways of doing both of these, but it's definitely not a strength. And due to their small size, white creatures are easier to get rid of, even if there are a lot of them. And because White's strategy is mostly creature-based, you can almost certainly plan around it. Blue wants perfection. Blue, when presented with a decision, asks what course of action makes the most sense, determined by careful thought and the application of knowledge and skill. Blue believes that each and every one of us is born a blank slate with the potential to become anything. Life is for figuring out what you can achieve with the right education, experience, and tools. It's all about improving, changing, and adapting. The journey is one of constant discovery. Blue wishes to perfect itself, but it also wants to perfect the world it lives in. Part of this is to ensure that it has access to all the resources it needs. This is why blue is the color most interested in technology and wants the latest and greatest in innovation. Blue draws power from islands, representing the endless possibilities of sea and sky. Blue is the color of control. It's able to counteract opponents' spells. It's able to put permanents back into their owner's hands, but most importantly, blue has access to the most card draw spells in the game. Manipulation spells are a huge part of this color as well, manipulating creatures, artifacts, your deck, etc. This can mean looking ahead in your deck to stack how you want it. It could mean copying another creature or artifact on the table. It can even change the colors of spells for more advanced play. Blue also has many defensive or evasive creatures. It has a lot of small unblockable creatures that make it hard for your opponents to interact with. These creatures may also have the ability Flash, making it so you can cast that creature on an opponent's turn. Blue is the main color that puts cards from your library and your opponent's libraries into the graveyard, or milling. There are various ways to win with this mechanic. Speaking of those creatures, blue typically uses these creature types: Merfolk, Wizard, Fairy, Illusion, Drake, Bird, Sphinx, Vidalcan. These creatures may have access to keywords such as Flying, Hexproof, Island Walk, or Flash. Blue is fantastic at drawing cards, countering spells, manipulating the board, and being tricky. It commonly casts spells at any time, even on an opponent's turn. It's great at being evasive and using creatures to their full advantage. Blue's actually really simple to understand, but extremely complicated to master. Blue is not good at dealing large amounts of damage at one time, and usually has to build up to it, so you'll typically be in for a longer game. Blue also lacks ways to obtain lands from your deck to get ahead, but the card draw kind of makes up for it, so it's not as direct. It's also the hardest color to learn because you have to learn to play on your opponent's turns as well, and since this is the case, deck building is key to keeping yourself ahead, and this can be really tricky. Milling cards can be extremely fast or extremely slow. This keeps mill decks from being super effective all the time and can usually be pushed through. Black wants power and seeks ambition. Black, when presented with a decision, asks what course of action will leave me with the most favored outcome. These outcomes include power, influence, and wealth. Black believes is the only realist among all the other colors. An individual is free to take whatever they want as long as they have the power to obtain it and keep it. This makes power the most important resource. With power, you can do anything. Black's philosophy is simple. There is no one better suited to look after your own interests than you. In this society, everyone looks out for themselves, so you'll at least have one person watching out for you. In addition, Black's system allows everyone the opportunity to succeed. But will everyone succeed? No, but that's not Black's doing. That's just how the world works. Black mana comes from swamps, where you'll find rot and decay. Black has one goal. It focuses on winning at any cost. It isn't afraid of hurting itself to get ahead. You'll find a lot of these self-hurt cards to get a bonus, just like drawing cards or resurrecting creatures. Anything is on the table for it. This regeneration allows Black to use the graveyard like the other colors can't, casting zombies, horrors, and demons from the graveyard or simply returning them to your hand. But even though Black is self-destructive, it also has ways to recover life in a different way than White. It seeks to harm others in order to steal or drain their life. They lose and you'll gain. Black has the most access to tutor cards as well. These cards allow you to find any card from your deck and put it into your hand or into play. The last main thing Black does is force opponents to discard cards. This allows you to keep them from playing the game in order to win. Like I said, anything is on the table. Black has a much darker roster of creature types than the other colors. Assassin, Cleric, Demon, Gorgon, Horror, Imp, Minion, Rat, Shade, Spectre, Thrall, Vampire, and Zombie. These creatures may have abilities like Fear, Skulk, Menace, or Death Touch. Black is good at reanimating creatures from the graveyard. It does so very efficiently and seeks to use the graveyard as extra card fodder. It's also great at making your opponents suffer with constant life loss. It's also the most efficient color in destroying creatures and planeswalkers with no questions asked. Black is not good during the late stages of a game. The self-hurting is fine during the early game, but after a while you'll be stuck with low life. And even though it can gain life as well, you could easily lose more life with your own spells. Black can also easily be dealt with if an opponent exiles your graveyard. That can seriously hurt your strategy and slow you down significantly. It's got lots of removal, but most of that removal does not target artifacts or enchantments, so you'll just have to find a way to get around that. Black also seeks to destroy its own creatures for some sort of bonus, but this could leave you very vulnerable. Red wants freedom. Red, when presented with a decision, asks, well, what do I feel like doing today? Everyone else seems preoccupied with moral decisions, structure, smelling the roses. Red isn't, because Red already knows the answer. Your heart tells you what it needs, so you just have to follow that. All you have to do is listen to it and act accordingly. It's just that simple. What do you feel like doing today? Red might seem a bit chaotic, but that's because others can't see what's in Red's heart. They just can't feel the emotions guiding them. Red lives life to the fullest and doesn't let anything get in the way of that. Red pulls its mana from mountains, where you'll find unstable elements like shaking earth, fire, and lava. Red jumps straight to the point. Destroy the enemy as soon as possible. Red uses direct damage spells to kill your opponents fast. It has no patience for subtlety, so it channels its lightning and fire into that direct damage. Impulse draw is huge for Red, meaning if you draw it and then don't use it, you just lose it forever. But you gotta go, you can't worry about that. It also has the ability to gain control of opponents' creatures temporarily. This helps stack your side of the board, leaving them vulnerable so you can charge in for the kill. In that same vein, Rain can also keep creatures from blocking, making it even easier to swing in. Red's creatures are all pretty fast or pretty hardy. Goblin, Ogre, Dragon, Giant, Elemental, Minotaur, Orc. These creatures have access to a more unique keyword, Haste, allowing them to attack the turn they come out. They may also have Trample, First Strike, Double Strike, or in the case of dragons, Flying. Red is by far the fastest color. This means it can win extraordinarily fast without any fanfare. Get in, get out. It's able to draw and discard very efficiently, helping you stay ahead. It has access to the most dragons in the game, giving it the ability to block white and blue flyers, and are able to use their fire-breathing ability to instantly get bigger when they attack or defend. The other colors typically don't do that. This allows you to swing in with a ton of extra damage if need be. Red can also swarm the board with goblins and use them to deal even more damage or swing in. Red is not good at pacing. You'll be swinging in so hot and fast that you'll just run out of land resources or cards in your hand very quickly. Winning fast is a great strategy until you can't do anything. Red is also not good at enchantment destruction. There just isn't any. At least I can't find any. So you'll have to figure that out somehow as well. Red's dragons are also very amazing, but you may find yourself unable to cast a lot of them due to their high mana costs, so you'll just have to choose between stacking for early game or late game. Green wants harmony. Green, when presented with a decision, asks, how are things usually done? What is the established wisdom? What has worked for thousands of years? The other four colors are focused on how they would change the world to fit their narrative. Green is the one color that doesn't want change in the world. Green is convinced that the world already got everything right on its own. Natural order is a thing of beauty and has all the answers to life's problems. The key is learning to sit back and recognize what's in front of you. Each individual is born with all the potential they need. The secret to a happy life is to recognize the role you were born with and embrace it. Do what you were destined to do. The world is vast and ever-changing on its own, and each of us gets to play a part in it. Green derives its mana from the forests of each world where nature flourishes. Green is centered around brute force. The bigger, the better. It has mainly spells with high mana costs, so to offset this, it contains the most ramp in the game. This allows you to search for the land you need to get ahead and to cast those large spells. While green does focus on these larger spells, it also has many small creatures as well, but they're primarily used for helping getting the bigger ones out. Many of them tap to add mana on their own, acting as lands themselves. To help out the creatures you'll be attacking with, green has access to many buff effects that make your creatures larger for one turn. These effects, as you may have guessed, can help out the smaller creatures to complement the larger ones, or they can be used to make a massive creature that's very hard to stop. Green is also the color with the most +1/+1 counter synergy. This can be an effect similar to combat bonuses just mentioned, or an inherent ability found on various creatures such as hydras, and creatures keep the +1/+1 counters as well. Green creature types are usually small and utilitarian, have high toughness, or are just big and stompy. Elf, Hydra, Human, Troll, Dryad, Kavu, Wolf, Treefolk, Worm, Druid, Beast, Insect, Spider, Squirrel. These creatures may have abilities such as Trample, Reach, Death Touch, and Hexproof. Green is very fast in grabbing extra lands from your deck. You'll almost always be ahead of your opponents when it comes to resources. This leads to a really strong mid-game strategy. However, in the case of the Elf archetype, you'll have a very fast and aggressive early game, but it's probably one of the best colors when it comes to the late game as well, due to the amount of mana you'll have at your disposal at any given moment. In other words, green has the most ways to compete in all stages of the game. The issue with this, however, is that all your small elves are extremely easy to get rid of. These creatures enter fast, but you'll need more ways to draw cards because you'll have an empty hand very early on, and they're just easy to kill. The big creatures it has access to will most certainly have big targets on their backs, meaning that they could just take a kill spell and just die, and you've wasted all that mana. And if you can't get the right spells to ramp in the early game, you'll just be stuck with high cost creatures that just stay in your hand forever. I hope this helped you understand which color you mostly relate with. Let me know what color you are in the description below after taking the quiz. All this being said, all the colors have advantages and disadvantages. That's why they all play so well against each other in the wonderful color pie. Once again, there are always exceptions to the rule, and these colors cross boundaries with keywords, mechanics, and strategies constantly. And after all this, I took a quiz on the MTG Color Quiz website, and I had a great time doing it. I referenced this website heavily for the making of this video, and I'll leave their link in the description below. As an Underlord patron, Ravenous Raven Design gets to contribute directly to the channel by suggesting one video topic a month. The video is dedicated to these patrons as well. It's a fun way to interact with all of you, and it's a fun way to get the community involved. Ravenous Raven Design provides web design, search engine optimization, WordPress design, and graphic design. I'll link their website in the description below as well. And while you're down there, support this channel by clicking on the TCGplayer affiliate link to purchase all your Magic needs. There's just a lot of things in the description on this one, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next week for your weekly dose of Magic.